There are those days where I cry. There are those days where I look up to God and say, why? Why me? But pity parties don't get us anywhere. I definitely learned grit from my parents. My dad always had at least 3 jobs. Every morning at 5 a.m. he was up. He was sitting at the table praying. And my mom, with all her health concerns, was the most gracious, faith-filled, Jesus-loving woman that I've ever known. And people would come over to pray for her, and they would walk out being blessed. I can't remember hearing her complain, and she was in pain every day. And my dad never complained about having to care for her or work the extra jobs. They just had joy. They were passionate about Jesus. They were passionate about their marriage and their family, and they had that perseverance that just took them through everything that they needed to get through. My mom started getting quite a bit worse. Her kind of arthritis starts to eventually attack your organs. The paramedics came and they did everything they could to revive her, but she had served him long and faithfully. And I can imagine the reception that she received. She definitely got a well done, good and faithful servant. I knew my husband when we were kids. Everybody knew he was kind of one of the kids that got in trouble sometimes. We just started talking. He ended up coming to our singles group Bible study, and he had really turned his life around. One day I was like, wow, he's a really nice guy. You know, he was very caring, very considerate. We just kind of hit it off. We started having kids in 2008. That's when we had my daughter. And then my son came along 14 months later. We almost lost Jordy, our youngest, in the pregnancy. I started hemorrhaging and I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, you're probably gonna have a miscarriage. I, of course, was devastated. They had to take him away right away. I saw him briefly. He had 8 surgeries the first year, so this little guy has been a fighter from the very beginning. It was obviously rough having my mom pass away 2 weeks before the wedding. He ended up getting a 3rd shift job, so he started not being able to come to church, and I started seeing some changes. There were some nights where he didn't come home at all. He was drinking and using drugs. He started getting physical and very angry. I just was so afraid. I didn't know how to fix it or who I could tell. We tried marriage counseling several times, and he would go for a little bit, and then I would end up going by myself. I felt like, as a good Christian girl, that there was no room for ending the marriage, and I just kind of hid everything from my family. When Jordy was just a couple months old, my husband, he got angry with me about something, and Aiden, who was probably about 3 at the time, came running in between us and said, I'll save you, Mommy. We were supposed to move soon after that, so I started trying to think about how I could get out, but I still couldn't do it. You don't think you can survive without them. I don't believe that I've ever heard God audibly speak to me, but we all know when we hear him speak to our hearts, and God just said, Melody, you can't go. So I just looked at him and I said, we're not coming with you. And I took the kids and I locked us in one of the bedrooms. So he took everything out of the house that he wanted, took all the bedroom, all the living room furniture, the washer and the dryer, and the car. We only had one at the time, and left me with Haley and Aiden and a 3-month-old who was back and forth from Riley Hospital with basically nothing and nowhere to go. I was so exhausted and I was so alone. I missed my mom so much. I had a journal that she had given me. After she passed, I very specifically remember leafing through it, looking through every page, because she was the kind of person that would sneak a note in there. And I thought, I bet she put a note in here, and I looked, and there was nothing. God had provided somewhere for us to live. I just was writing a list of everything I have to do, calling to get food assistance, calling to try to get disability for Jordy, trying to get Medicaid so we had insurance coverage, and all these things that I'm writing in this notebook. And I turned the page, and there in my mom's handwriting is this note that basically said, Melody, you are here for such a time as this. God has gifted you and put in you everything that you need to handle whatever you are going through right now. All those years ago, to write exactly the words I needed. That he stuck those 2 pages together as I was flipping through it the first time, trying so desperately to hear a word from my mom, that he made sure that I didn't get that till I needed it. So at the exact moment that I needed to hear her voice, it was there. We went through a lot of court hearings, a lot of supervised visitation for him and the kids, a lot of me trying to preserve his relationship with them while still keeping them and me safe. And it was 2016 in the summer where he stopped coming to see the kids at all. So that's hard to see them sad. They cry and ask why Daddy doesn't want to come see them. That's really hard. Aiden started struggling in kindergarten. We found out that he has an autism spectrum disorder. He is very smart, but socially and behaviorally, he really struggles. So that has been really hard too, because now I have another child who has special needs and there's only one of me. There are those days where I cry. There are those days where I look up to God and say, why? Why me? But pity parties don't get us anywhere. My dad was crushed when he lost my mom, the love of his life, and I watched him fall down. And I watched him get up. I had seen their grit, and that gave me the push that I needed to not quit on all those really hard days. And being a single mom is isolating. It's an odd dynamic because you're never alone, but I have never felt more lonely in my life. And there have been so many times where I walked into church almost out the door, where I almost turned around. God's just right there saying, you're not alone. I'm here with you no matter what. And there are people at GCC that love you, and you have friends here. You have people that love your kids, and this is where I'm telling you need to be. And so I stay, and every time I stay, I'm so glad that I did, because this place is full of Jesus-loving people. God is here, He is working, and it gives me the battery recharge that I need to do one more day, because that's all He asks is one more day, one more minute. Just keep going, do your next step, and that's what I keep doing.